So Bree and I do date night literally every single week, and some people think it's weird. Like, they're like, every week? Like, yes, I don't care what's happening, what's going on. We're going on date night every single week, right? Now, the story behind this, I just put a video on my story of a guy who I got a chance to learn from. I went down to his house in Florida. He's got like a $25 million mansion. And I go down there and he does all this business coaching, all this different stuff. And you got these guys who are making, $700,000 a year, $1.2 million a year, $3 million a year, all this different stuff, running $15, $20 million businesses. And so one of the guys who's there, he tells Pat, like, hey man, I'm struggling with my business and all this different stuff. Pat looks at him and he says, how often do you take your wife on dinner dates? And so the guy looks at him like, what are you talking about? He's like, I have a lot to do. Like, I don't have time, right? And so Pat actually has his wife, Jen, come in, right? And I have a picture of Jen the day she comes in, she gets the microphone. And he's like, hey, Jen, tell these people. He's like, how often do we miss dinner dates, right? And she's like, what? She doesn't know what's going on. He's like, how often do we miss dinner? We don't. Like, we always go on date night. And so if you know anything about Pat's story, Pat's got a lot of different things going on. And Pat stops and looks at him and he says, I've got this company that I run. I've got this company. This company's about to sell for 300 mil. I just became a minority owner of the New York Yankees. I've got all this stuff going on. And I take my wife out to dinner more often than everyone in this room. And for me at that moment, I wasn't even married back then. Okay, I was single at the time when I'm hearing this. But there was this like paradigm shift that took place for me. Because I always looked at when people were like that successful, making that much money, I'm like, deep down, their marriage has got to be struggling. They got to have some issue here, there, whatever. It's like, nah, it's a front. I'm thinking it's a front. And that was the first time in my life where I ever thought, okay, someone winning at that level really valued their relationship with their wife that much. Like, I always thought, you hear these crazy stories, these crazy billionaires, and there's these divorces and all this different stuff, right? You know what's crazy is there was a season in my life where the money, the cars, the mansions, the riches, and all that different stuff, that mattered to me so much. I thought that was so important, right? And the funny thing about it, that's not even how I was raised. My dad was like the last person to be enamored by brands and who's got what. He was always big on like, what matters most is who you are. For me, in hindsight, there was a few failures I experienced that I wasn't able to process, so kind of led to that train of thinking for that season. That being said, I now know that's not what creates wealth. Wealth is really like an internal thing, and the external is just a reflection, right, of how you view yourself. But in the season where I thought that I needed that stuff to be secure about who I was, it actually took somebody who had what I thought I needed. It took seeing that person didn't even value their wealth as much as I did. It took seeing that for me to finally detach from this thought that I need these different things to prove that I'm successful, all this different stuff. And it's one of the most powerful lessons of my life, because what it's shown me, or what it's at least confirmed to me, is a couple of things. One, that wealth is not the things that you acquire, right? That real wealth is internal. It's how you view yourself, how you value yourself. And typically what happens when you see external success, it's just a byproduct of the person who views themselves as successful. Two, that more valuable than any success that you're ever gonna have is the relationships that you have in your family. And if you're married, more than any relationship in the world, the most valuable relationship will always be your spouse. And then number three, the moment you get to a place in your life where you finally recognize that all this external validation and all this chasing money and chasing success really has no meaning whatsoever to the value of your life, the moment you get to that realization is one of the best moments to commit yourself to becoming successful, because the world needs more people who are successful, who are not attached to their success. I believe we need more billionaires that don't believe that money defines them. Because when billionaires are wealthy, but they know the only reason that they're wealthy is because how they treat other human beings, the entire framework of the world that we live in would flip itself upside down. I mean, imagine a world where the people who were the wealthiest financially were also the ones that cared about people the most, where financial success wasn't a byproduct of scarcity and hoarding onto wealth, but was a direct reflection of the level of service that you offered to people. And that's not to say that Pat is by any means perfect. I mean, the guy has some political standpoints I just don't all the way agree with. That being said, it is to say that there is some merit to winning the game that the world cares about, right? Because if the world cares so much about money and you happen to be the person who wins that game, the world will look at you and ask you what are the values and principles that matter. And if you're someone who's detached from the money, you're someone who understands that money does not dictate how valuable you are as a human being, you now become the very bridge that the average person in society needs in order to let go of some of the toxic belief systems that we've been taught. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine how big of an impact someone like my dad would have if he also, with the character that he has, where it's like, I don't care about all the money and the flashy, and I've got money, but it's not the end all be all. The content of your heart is that's who my dad is. I could only imagine someone like my dad also having billions of dollars, what type of impact that could have on the world, right? And so, many of you guys may know somebody who cares about people a lot, is really big on taking care of their family, and maybe they're not like ultra rich, or maybe they're ultra rich and they don't really spend much time with their family. I think the best example for both of these people is somebody who lives out a life where both are possible, where caring about people, taking care of your family is a supreme priority, and you're breaking barriers in business and innovation and showing the world that you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. And for those of you guys that believe in God, Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God. It doesn't say seek only, it just says seek first. It is okay to seek out wealth and being successful as long as you're making sure that you're being a good person in order to do so. And then Acts 20:35, right, says it is more blessed to give than to receive. It doesn't say that receiving is not blessed though. It says it's more blessed to give than to receive, but it never says that receiving is bad. Right? And so being a good person, taking care of people, and being extremely wealthy in the process is very good for you. It's very good for your family, and it's very good for the world. I mean, I can't even fathom anything that would be bad about a genuine hearted, good person that had millions and billions of dollars of resources to fund the things that they thought were good for the world. The only thing that would make this scenario bad is if somebody didn't believe it was possible. Because if somebody didn't believe it was possible and you happen to be a really good person and really wealthy, they would look at you and say, this person has to be a bad person because having both is just not possible, right? And so, as it says in the word, honor thy mother and father. My goal is to show the world what it looks like when someone like my dad is extremely wealthy.